We begin tonight with the capacity of art to reflect serious events in the world, in this case, years of unrest in the Middle East. In an exhibition called Presence at MSU Denver's Center for Visual Art, the work of 12 artists offers an interpretation of how it feels to leave something, either by choice or by force of circumstance, like war. But also in these photo-based works is the artist's cultural heritage, a look at the past interwoven with the present. Contemporary art, global perspective. That's the mission of Denver's Center for Visual Art, started in 1990 by the art faculty of Metropolitan State University. Two current faculty members and the gallery's managing director started on this show called Presence by researching work of Middle Eastern photographic artists. They became interested in views of the East by those who may be displaced from it.
What we kept seeing was a certain absence in the images, and there's a theorist by the name of Jacques Derrida. He talks about the trace, and he was talking primarily about linguistics, but the word cat doesn't exist alone. It exists in context, and it contains the trace of the word before, and it carries over into the word behind. So black cat runs, right? So the trace, it sort of links through in and out. And photography is often tied to the trace because there's always the trace of what came before. So that sort of led us to thinking about presence and absence.
Looking at Halim Al-Karim's work in general, his work has, when you first encounter it, has somewhat of an unsettling effect because the eyes are so prominent in the work. And he writes about the work in that the eyes are really the only safe way to speak about certain feelings or emotions. So all people who are in these war-torn or conflict zones are restricted in what they can speak about, and so the eyes are the medium for that message.
Samira Yamin is an artist who uses Time magazine to present the recurring images of news from the Middle East.
Every week there's all this chaos of news, right? And at the end of that week, Time magazine, which she focuses on exclusively, comes in, takes that chaos and creates a system out of it and a way to understand and order things. These are all hand cut. So she puts these over a light box with the pattern underneath, and because they're so, magazines are so thin, she can actually see the pattern, and then she very carefully cuts it out. My understanding is it takes thousands of hours. But it's also that idea of like putting order over chaos. So the way that the system of knowledge is being ordered out of this chaos of a week's worth of news. At the same point in time, she takes that sacred geometry, sort of overlays it over what is clearly chaotic, and looks at the interplay between the two.
Some of the photographs are journalistic in their depiction of life. Others have been enhanced and presented in large scale to focus on the details of the seemingly ordinary. Tariq Al-Hussein made a series of bus windshields.
I mean, the technique is really interesting, and it's been discussed by many students so far that I've come to visit, and they always want to know why the windshield wipers are so clearly in focus when everything else, that you see the dirt of the windshield, and I believe it's definitely like Photoshop magic for sure. But what I really love about these is that, I mean, buses are so decorated in the Middle East. This artist has a very high skill in digital imaging. I think that they isolated the windshield wiper and made it just extra sharp, which is interesting because, as Cecily was mentioning earlier, they can almost be interpreted as a weapon. And buses in the Middle East are often targets, so they're very loaded subject matter.
The Presence exhibit also gives the CVA a special theme for its Young Artist Workshops, run by MSU art education students.
What I'm going to show you right now is called the Ebro marbling technique, and it's a technique that has been around since the 15th century and is from Turkey. you take inks that are made out of minerals and you lay them in water, and it kind of creates this bath with the ink. And you take a paintbrush and swirl it around, and you get this cool effect. And you take a piece of paper, put it down, lift it up, and you have like a really cool dynamic image.
Oh, cool. This is it.
It's a pretty fun technique, huh?
While giving these young artists a hands-on experience, the curators of the exhibition hope they are also absorbing new impressions of the Middle East, like this series by Shadi Guderian, in which she portrays the traditional and the modern in the lives of Iranian women.
I like the way that she takes the chador, this thing that we're so afraid of in the West in a lot of ways, that, you know, that all covering veil, and gives it really bright colors, patterns, and livens that up a little bit, but also the way that she sort of plays with notions of femininity that I think in a lot of ways can speak even to Western women. There's just these stereotypes that women are in the kitchen, women do the cleaning, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the objects that are associated with the performance of womanhood, essentially.
This collection of images, says Cecily Cullen, gives the viewer a chance to consider ideas they may not have encountered before.
Having that conversation through contemporary art, we have a different perspective, and artists can really say things that are not said in other ways, in other forms. And so using visual art as a language allows us to have a different discussion about the Middle East and what's happening there and what's happening with people in the Middle East and the ones that come here as well.
You can see the Presence exhibition through April 8th at the Center for Visual Art, located in Denver's Art District on Santa Fe.